Welcome to the Disgruntled Cinephile. I'm your host, Stephen Vargas. This is a podcast where we discuss all things film and why the internet has kind of ruined it for me. Welcome back to the second episode of The Disgruntled Cinephile. I hope I didn't scare you off with my first episode, and if I did, welcome to all the new listeners. I've made a shift in the concept of the podcast. Starting with the next episode, I will focus on films from my Generation X lifestyle, or lifetime, not lifestyle, lifetime. I will be focusing on films that were released in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They're older films, but put context to the era in which they were released. And if I discuss anything with the 2000s, like today's topic, it'll be regards to big concepts or like underrated cult classics or a grouping of films within a certain franchise. And I made this change partway through writing this episode, so that's why the changes will start next episode. And instead of being a broad show, I wanted to make it a bit more niche. However, the films will be far and wide, like art films, historical, fantasy, sci-fi, comedies, pulp culture. So it'll make it a little less of another voice within a large group. And again, these are my picks. And if you don't like them, make your own damn show. But you won't, because that would require work. So anyways, let's get down to business. And we do have a Patreon now. For as little as $5 a month, you too can sponsor a tuxedo cat to get him the food that he needs. I swear, I keep thinking that might be the angle that I should go with. But seriously though, for as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to both our Lazy Geeks podcast and this show, up to a week in advance. It might not always be a week in advance, but it'll be before the regular standard release. So just head over to patreon.com/thelazygeeks for more details. And we're also still accepting standalone donations for all the shows through Venmo, PayPal, and all of that. So if you like to get a shout out for your donations or being a Patreon subscriber, head over to thelazygeeks.com/donations for more details on how to do so. Now that all the housekeeping's out of the way, we'll be right back with more after this. You tired of the click and engagement bait trash you read on social media or that fills hours of geek podcasts? The Lazy Geeks have been taking that clickbait clutter out of it since 2010. And in 2026, we are continuing that mission with an alternating style of episodes. One week you'll get a classic show with Steven and Adam discussing whatever they want to talk about, proving you aren't going crazy. The next, Steven will go into deep dives on topics that fill our social media feeds, illustrating that you aren't insane and they're doing it for the money, rage baiting you into a dystopian social media wasteland. Subscribe now to The Lazy Geeks. New episodes drop every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What do you do? You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
Musicians play their instruments. I play the orchestra. I hear you've been worse than usual this morning. I didn't think that was possible.
It's a system error.
Fix it.
Fix it?
Yeah.
We're not a pit crew at Daytona. This can't be fixed in seconds.
You didn't have seconds. You had 3 weeks. The universe was created in a third of that time.
Well, someday you'll have to tell us how you did it.
I'm begging you to manage expectations out there.
You see how this reminds you of a friendly face? It's warm and it's playful and inviting and it needs to say hello.
If you keep alienating people for no reason, there's gonna be no one left for it to say hello to.
Your Apple stock was worth $441 million, while your daughter and her mother are on welfare.
She's not my daughter!
You must be able to see that she looks like you.
You're issuing contradictory instructions, you're insubordinate, you make people miserable.
Even if that were true, doesn't sound that diabolical to me.
The year was 2015. It was the last year before the world went crazy, before the 2016 election and the Cubs winning the World Series, which sent us into that alternate timeline, back when social media was kind of fun. Instagram was all about cool filters, carefully curated feeds, and not just a battlefield for engagement-hungry influencers. Twitter was full of witty one-liners, Vine was still alive, and many fandoms were thriving on Tumblr with GIFs and aesthetic posts, turning all platonic heterosexual pop culture relationships into gay romances. The internet felt more personal, creative, and a hell of a lot more fun. And in 2015, Jeb Bush and Donald Trump would announce their bid for the presidency in 2016. Facebook was starting to become a place that old people hung out sharing content, whether it was real or not. And we were in the second to last year of the Obama presidency. We were a year out from DC Comics' new Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Many DC fans were disappointed with the 2013's Man of Steel, but hoped with that the introduction of Batman could reverse that course. But having an older Bruce Wayne, played by Ben Affleck, not many fans had high hopes. And in 2015, we lost people like Leonard Nimoy, composer James Horner, actor Alex Rocco, and wrestler-turned-actor Rowdy Roddy Piper. And if you haven't watched the cult classic They Live, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Now, Steve Jobs died on October 5th, 2011. Between his death and October of 2015, the market was flooded with tell-alls about the co-founder of Apple. Between books, documentaries, and some very bad films, it seems like the last thing the public needed was another Steve Jobs movie. And in 2010, The Social Network hit theaters and was a huge hit. The film had been in production since 2011, less than a year after Jobs' death, based on the book by author Walter Isaacson, who had written biographies on Henry Kissinger, Benjamin Franklin, and Elon Musk. But the screenplay was adapted by Aaron Sorkin, who himself had written screenplays based on novels for The Social Network, for which he won an Oscar, Moneyball, and Charlie Wilson's War. Now, originally, David Fincher, who directed The Social Network, was attached to direct, but backed out after contractual obligations. And that was when Oscar winner Danny Boyle was brought in. Now, Christian Bale was originally approached to play Jobs. Leonardo DiCaprio was also in talks. However, the film was originally going to be produced through Sony, but the film was placed in turnaround, and eventually Universal acquired it. From a 2026 perspective, it's a stacked cast and a completely underrated film, which is why I chose this film for this week as being a truly underrated film. And to be honest, the major difference is in the cast in 2026, you look at it and you go, my God, that's a stacked cast. But even by 2015 perspective, 11 years ago, it still had a stacked cast. And the major difference is that many of the minor roles were cast with actors who wouldn't become bigger names over the next decade. Michael Fassbender was Jobs. Seth Rogen, who doesn't get enough credit for his performance. I think was totally underrated in his performance of Steve Wozniak, Kate Winslet, and Jeff Daniels. One of the biggest surprises for me and for most people would be Sarah Snook from Succession fame. She played Andrea, a personal favorite actor of mine, Michael Stuhlbarg. I always fuck up his last name. Stuhlbarg played Andy Hertzfeld, and I first remembered him from another Sorkin project, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Catherine Waterston was cast as Kristen Brennan. She was in the Fantastic Beasts franchise, Alien Covenant, and Inherent Vice. However, I remember her from a small 2007 movie called The Babysitters. And if you've seen it, don't even judge me. John Ortiz was cast as GQ reporter Joel Fortzenheimer. He was also in 2 of the Fast and Furious films, as well as Silver Linings Playbook and American Gangster. Ripley Sobo, who played Lisa at 9, later did Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. She was the little girl Bruce Wayne saved at the beginning of the film. She also went on to play Leo in Netflix's The Punisher series. Pearl Haney Jardine, who played Lisa at 19, played Penny Marco in Spider-Man 3, BB in Kill Bill Volume 2, and one of the girls from Charles Manson's Following in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, the film flopped at the box office, and many people think it was due to the title. Ashton Kutcher's Job movie came out 2 years prior in 2013 and was mocked for how bad it was. Some people believe that it was so bad that it's good, but for me, it's just bad. It's just bad. And there were there was another TV movie called The Pirates of Silicon Valley that focused on how Apple and Microsoft started and grew. Anthony Michael Hall played Bill Gates and Noah Wyle played Jobs. And I actually liked this movie, but it is really hard to find. I had it on DVD by just random chance. I saw it at the store and I bought it. But when I moved to Arizona, I seemed to have lost it in the move. However, many people believe that its failure was due to the film not painting a rosy picture of Jobs. The film featured him as a flawed man. And during the 2010s, Steve Jobs' cultists hated anything that was negative about the cult icon. No one wanted to see a real person. A flawed man, as his character states at the end of the movie, he was, quote, poorly made, end quote. And as the years have gone on, the purity of the man had faded, but there are still some who idolize him. And when the movie came out, other Silicon Valley types and reporters claimed that this, quote, wasn't the man they knew, end quote. Many of them would be equated to the Snyder Bros of now. And that fills social media and podcasts, But my argument was, how does a reporter really, quote unquote, know a man? Jobs, if anything, was a conductor of the media. They even state that in the film. He knew how to play them to his tune. Many even dismiss Wozniak's approval of the movie because he was paid, or Lisa Jobs spoke with Sorkin, but not with the writer of the book, and backed up much of the type of relationship they had. The other dismissal that bothers me is the concept that much of the movie was fiction. No shit, Sherlock. When people see biopics, they seem to believe that this has to be true. How much of it was true? And this ideology makes me think of those aliens from Galaxy Quest that think movies are historical documents. Movies have to make it entertaining for the audience. They have to conflate or combine different people into one character, or conflate 2 different scenes to make it entertaining. Because if you think about your life, imagine how boring it would be to tell that story if you told it honestly. Now, Kutcher's Jobs movie was horrible because it only dealt with his major innovations. Similar to buying the greatest hits album of a band with a vast discography, we as a society need to stop treating movies as a definitive biography of a person, idea, or event. Now, this film does that. It wasn't about the technology, which I think gets to most people. Because if you want that, Kutcher's Jobs movie is what you want. This movie is about the man and the people around him. And we'll be right back with more after this quick break. Hey there, podcast listener. Steven here. And I wanted to let you guys know we are in the final weeks of our springtime donation drive. We are still $90 away from our goal for switching hosting companies. And if we fail to come up with those funds, we will lose the website and the use of our domain. Now, the domain is secure, but we won't be able to direct you to thelazygeeks.com with an active website. So if you would like to help us out, you can make a one-time donation through either Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. This will not only get our thanks, but a special shout out in a future episode. Any further donations will go to make all of the podcasts self-sustaining or get me a Dr. Pepper and my cat his bougie food. And just a reminder, we have a Patreon now. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to both the Lazy Geeks and the Disgruntled Cinephile, as well as access to polls. Higher tiers will allow you access to a new mini-series or special Patreon-only content. So head on over to patreon.com/thelazygeeks. Now that the PBS fundraising is done, let's get back to the episode.
You made a beautiful board, which, by the way, you're willing to give out for free, so don't tell me how you built Apple. If it weren't for me, you'd be the easiest day at Homestead High School.
These people live and die by your praise. So here's your chance. Acknowledge that something good happened that you weren't in the room for.
No.
Steve, do it. It's right. It's right.
Sorry, but no.
Let me put it another way. I don't think there's a man who's done more to advance the democratization that comes with personal computing than I have, but you've never had any respect for me. Now, why is that?
I'd at least consider the possibility that it's because you've never had any for me.
What the hell is going on here?
Nothing. Thank you for your time.
It's done. She's coming back.
You came a half inch from putting this company out of business. Now, who do I see about that? I'm letting you keep your job. You get a pass.
You know, when people used to ask me what the difference was between me and Steve Jobs, I would say Steve was the big picture guy, and I liked a solid workbench. When people ask me what the difference is now, I say Steve's an asshole. Your products are better than you are, brother.
That's the idea, brother. And knowing that, that's the difference.
It's not binary. You can be decent and gifted at the same time.
The opening of the film, Steve Jobs, is a piece of archival footage of Arthur C. Clarke discussing to a father about how a computer will be beneficial to his daughter in the future. And when you see that piece of film, you see how close he was to being right without mentioning the key focal point of that being the internet. One piece that got me was his description of work from home, which had been around since the mid-2000s. I got that option when I worked for a small e-commerce company. Now, the film does something quite interesting with its photography. Much of the talking head scenes, which there are many, are beautifully cut together between present and intercut flashback sequences, in a way of giving scenes context as to what has been harboring certain feelings between Steve and John Scully, as well as between Steve and Woz. Now, intercuts between Steve and Woz about a closed system versus an open system. The film touches on how Wozniak was a hacker by belief. Tinkering and expanding his computer was what they were all about. And it's still the way he is today. Now, many people that use Windows or Linux computers like the ability to upgrade memory, add various peripherals to their computer, while Steve wanted to limit the access and only use specific software or even tools, what would later be commonly known as proprietary hardware. Sony is notorious for doing that. Even the Xbox Series X memory cards isn't something you could just buy at a random Target. Now, one of the greatest achievements in the editing department was at the midpoint of the movie, when Scully and Jobs argued over why everyone thinks Scully fired Jobs. And this plays later in the film's third act. And during their shouting match, the film drops us into the moments they are referring to. I fight over dropping the Mac line completely. The perspective of the argument is Scully talking about that line while Jobs is talking about himself.
We've lost hundreds of millions in value, and I'm the CEO of Apple, Steve. That's my resume.
But before that, you sold carbonated sugar water, right? I sat in a fucking garage with Wozniak and invented the future because artists lead and hacks ask for a show of hands.
All right, well, this guy's out of control. I'm perfectly willing to hand in my resignation tonight, but if you want me to stay, you can't have Steve. Settle him out. He can keep a share of stock so he gets our newsletter. He'll have to sever his connection to Apple. I'm dead serious. I want the secretary to call for a vote.
I fucking dare you.
You have done an outstanding job over the years of cultivating the press, and by that I mean manipulating them, because none of them, and none of their editors, none of their editors' publishers to this day know that you forced it, that you forced the board, even after I told you exactly what they do, which is exactly what they did, unanimously.
I don't have any trouble remembering that, John, because of it being the worst night of my life. And I forced the vote because I believed I was right. I still believe I'm right, and I'm right. Now, I bled that night, and I don't bleed.
Now, the film could have been filmed in a traditional wide, medium, and close-up shots, but what they chose to do with the intercut scenes is to heighten the tension. Even small moments when Jobs is telling Joanna Huffman about Skylab, about how they sent it up into space with no idea how they were going to bring it back home, using it as a metaphor for his next computer. But the archival footage of the launch and orbit splashed up on the wall behind them. Even the traditional cuts between the time jumps, using archival news footage to fill the gaps between the jumps. It's a great way to get everybody up to speed. Now, one of the key factors in this film was the different ways they shot the film to match the three distinct time periods. The 1984 Macintosh launch was shot on a grainy 16mm film. The 1988 Next Cube launch was shot on a richer 35mm film. And the 1998 IMAX segment was shot using pristine modern digital cameras. Now, to the normal stare, you wouldn't notice the change outright, but there would be subtle clues. In the 1984 sequences, in many dark areas, you would notice imperfections in the film, a grainy texture in the dark spots. It was to mimic the world at a time before Apple rose to dominance. And in the 1988 segment, it's shot on 35mm, which gives the San Francisco Opera House a bit richer and deeper coloring. With the building full of beige and deep reds, the colors seem to pop louder almost immediately. And the hues seem sharper, while the darker spots even crisper than from the previous time block. And then, of course, it moves to digital when they hit the 10-year time jump to 1998. The coloring is much more flat as well and well lit. As you can see in the back room where Jobs meets with many people, a lot more clarity in the darker shots and a lot more accustomed to what we know about today. Now, one of the reasons I love Aaron Sorkin's writing is because it's full of sarcasm. And if you've listened to any of the older episodes of The Lazy Geeks, you can hear it. Now, as my friend Adam once said, sometimes you say things that come out of left field, and it's true. Now, I first came to know of Sorkin when his play was adapted to a film, A Few Good Men. Once I discovered it was a play, I made my way to Samuel French in Studio City and grabbed a copy of it. Even performed a scene out of it in my drama class in college. And no, it wasn't the big courtroom scene at the end. It was a scene where Kathy met Galloway in her office for the first time. Now, of course, I followed that with The American President and then on to The West Wing, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and The Newsroom. Moneyball is still one of my favorite movies. Now, Sorkin is sort of a masterclass of writing data dumps with one-liners. The modern dialogue is to break up what many would consider lazy writing, especially how they use Scully as a vessel to discuss his failed adoption and that thread of not being in control. And when you look deeper into the writing of Sorkin, performances of Michael Fassbender and the direction of Danny Boyle, they create a deeply flawed person, but with some psychological themes backing it up. And with Winslet's performance of Joanna Huffman adds a layer of complexity and security of her counsel. The real-life Huffman stated that she was his quote-unquote work wife. She carried all the stress, confusion, and exasperation that someone in a position would be dealing with when you're dealing with someone like Jobs. And even though Jobs' relationship is very much surface level, or as he says later, indifferent, you see that he has a very deep, secure relationship with Joanna, even to the way he toys with her by pushing her buttons. You know, while the film is about Jobs, it wasn't about what he made. Yes, he was influential to the society at large, but the film wanted to explore a different route. Kutcher's Jobs was his greatest hits of, look what he's done. Boyle's version was asking the question of, who was the man? And that's where most people have problems. The old adage of never meet your heroes is because they're always dicks. And it's because they will never meet your pious expectations you created from interviews, press conferences, and quotes you read in a book or online. It is simply because it brings them down to your level. And they're human. Human beings suck. We are all flawed, incomplete, irrational. And we have this conception that they have to be better than us, with no understanding as to why. But just because they created something that changed the world doesn't make them gods. However, it is interesting who the public chooses to create gods. People love Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, but hate Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. Why? They did the same thing. Windows changed the way we do computing. Mark Zuckerberg blew up social media, but they are chosen to not be liked. That's one of the things I think made people, especially critics and fanboys, not like this film. The concept of bringing in his adoption and play it in the beginning and the end was designed to give Jobs a character arc. His initial adopted parents gave him back. Why would that haunt him? Well, that would haunt any of us. It was something he had no control over. And that's why the initial conversation about it backstage at the Mac 1984 launch set the stage, figuratively. His obsession over something he had no control over led to his obsession about making everything perfect, something he could control. His indifference to how people felt about him wasn't just happenstance, it was by design. Not caring about what other people thought of him was a defense mechanism. The thought that he mentioned in the beginning when, what would a months-old child do to make people give him up? It's not even about his biological parents. It was about his adopted ones. And while many fans wanted to see the behind-the-scenes working on how he made technology advancements, all they needed to do was watch Kutcher's Jobs movie. The film placed that in the background, and it was more a study of the man. The intersectional scenes between him and Lisa was the thread running through the film. His reluctance to accept her as his daughter was a mirror of the rejection that endured when he was adopted and returned. Everything was centered around him, a poorly designed man. Every time someone else referred to themselves with the impact his actions had on them, like he was like a true narcissist, and turned it around and made it about him. Does it make him bad? No, in my opinion. It makes him more human. And I think that's what pissed people off. Making someone human is almost insulting to their fans.
What's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you? Why are you telling her these things? Why are you still telling her I'm her father?
A judge told her you're her father.
No, he didn't.
And where the hell do you get off telling Time magazine I've slept with 28% of the men in America?
That's not
Where do you get off?
That's not remotely what I said.
It's right here.
First of all, can I tell you something about Time magazine? I believe it's a training facility for paid assassins.
Jobs insists, I'm
I
quoting,
didn't invent math.
28% of the male population of the United States could be the father.
I wasn't saying you slept with 28% of American men. I was using an algorithm based on the blood test, which said there was a 94.1% chance that I'm the father.
You're trying to publicly paint me as a slut and a whore.
Believe me, I'm not trying to publicly do anything with you.
2 million people read Time. How am I
It would be
supposed
more
to...
if they put me on the cover, but Dan
I
Cocky
applied for
decided to
welfare
kidney punch
yesterday.
me. I'm sorry?
I said I applied for welfare yesterday. The Time article said your Apple stock was worth $441 million. And I wanted to ask you how you felt about that.
Well, I feel like Apple stock has been dramatically undervalued. This would be a good time to get in.
Our culture has a level of celebrity worship that allows us to do some mental gymnastics to believe that they had a good reason to be mean or tough. And I think more people should meet their heroes. Maybe that will give them a better understanding that anything on stage, in interviews, or on social media is a facade. We can praise them for their achievements, and that's okay. But making humans that are good in one area a deity, that is something completely different. That's a cult. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what I'm doing here, you have two ways to help. One, if you would like to make this show self-sustaining, buy me a Dr. Pepper, or feed my cat his bougie food, you can make a one-time donation through either PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Check the show notes for details and links. Or two, you can sign up for our Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to our episodes as well as take part in polls and user suggestions. Just head on over to patreon.com/thelazygeeks for more info. If giving money isn't your thing, you can share us on social media or review us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. This will make the algorithm gods promote our show to an unsuspecting public. You can check out all my content, including my other podcasts, at thelazygeeks.com. You can also stalk me on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, and TikTok, at The Lazy Geeks. Visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thelazygeeks. And if you're old school and want to email us, do so at thelazygeeksnetwork@gmail.com. So that's it for me this week. Until next time, we can all like movies for different reasons. We just don't need to be a dick about it.